Alright, hello. So, I've kept working on the build, and I've made some upgrades and some changes, so I figured I'd make another video going over what I've done, and also at the end of the video I want to show you how to craft a pretty good set of, well, not a pretty good, a very good set of gloves for the build, which you can do deterministically, and while it may cost you a bit of currency, it is all guaranteed, and there is no real... you can basically counteract all the randomness with just trying it multiple times to get exactly the things you want. So let's go over what we've done first with the build. So the gloves I was talking about are these gloves. So you got the incursion mod, you got coin strike. For the last suffix, you got attack speed, which is very nice. Obviously, I got pretty unlucky making these because that's tier 5 attack speed, unfortunately, and that's the one roll you can't really change. But as for the prefixes, we got spell damage, we got +2 to socket AoE gems, which is quite nice, and you've also got an open prefix, which you can put increased damage while leeching on, so that's a nice bit of damage. And since we now have these gloves, you know, I moved all the ores in here, and I've also moved the vortex setup, which I used to have in my gloves. I moved them to the boots, which, you know, is doubly nice because that means I can move the cast on damage taken setup to the helmet, and you know, I'm not gonna again put the increased duration into my After the Spider's Thought, so doubling up on the niceness here. You can see that the helmet looks a bit different. We'll cover that in a bit. Other changes, pretty tiny, but I upgraded the neck, so we got a better neck now. The +21 crit strike multi. Scourge is very strong. -2 mana is, you know, pretty negligible. It's not the best downside. The best downside would be -1 on the resists. That's not fire, because we get loads of those. But it's still fine. The resist to maximum mana, not a huge deal. As for the corrupted blood thing, that was an added bonus in this one. I'm gonna try it out to see if it's actually enough to where we can remove the corrupted blood immunity. I'm thinking it might be, because I think 5 stacks of corrupted blood is actually not that big of a deal. But I'm gonna have to try that out. Right now I don't know if it's actually it is that good or not. But it could be. So I'll get back to you when I've figured that out. Otherwise, I swapped the cost speeds to just have a bit more damage on it, so that's quite nice. I've also been up the attack speed a bit. We're no longer running the so one. Rings are the same, but yeah, so the big change is the helmet. So I sold off the last helmet in order to afford this new one, along with a bunch of grinding and farming I did, and my mission to throw, you know, as much currency as humanly possible at this build. We got this one, so this is a mirrored helmet. It's really quite something. So this is up currently on the Forbidden Trove website for a mirror service. I believe the fee is 80x still, which is, you know, pretty steep, but it is very good helmet. So it has crit multi, it has maximum power charges, elemental damage, increased mana reservation, which is incredibly nice, 3 damage pen, and the minus cold res. So this helmet's just insane, and it lets us do a lot of different things that I'll go over in a bit. But let's go over the gem slogans first. So you can see that I actually have it not 4-linked. The reason why I have it like this is that I've actually swapped Molten Shell to be, right now I'm self-casting Molten Shell instead of having cast when damage taken, which means that I'm now running increased duration again, you know, my favorite gem. And the reason I don't want to have these 4-linked is because increased duration would then apply, it would be similar to Asper the Spider, because Defiance Banner is in here and I can't really put it anywhere else. And it would it has a duration tag on it, so this would be affected by the increased duration reservation multiplier and make Defiance Banner cost more mana, so that's why I don't want this 4-linked. So yeah. And the reason why I don't have this on autocast anymore is because if you were eagle-eyed and paid attention, my last helmet actually had a lot of accuracy on it. And as I said in the previous video, you actually kind of need one piece of gear with a big flat accuracy roll in order to cap your accuracy. However, the way I've solved this is, since I don't have accuracy on any of my gear right now, we've actually changed some stuff in our jewels. So if you look at our cold clusters, they're a bit different. So I'm now using, instead of, I believe, Prismatic Heart, we are using Disorienting Display in both of our cold clusters. So this, instead of the 30 elemental damage that you get from Prismatic Heart, you get 25, which is not, you know, it's not that much of a decrease, really, but you also get 10% chance to blind nearby enemies when you use an elemental skill. Now, blind, as you can see, being blinded causes 20% less accuracy rating and evasion rating for 4 seconds, so the 20% less evasion rating basically functions as a more multiplier for your accuracy, so it's a very strong, it's like a really juicy accuracy roll, basically. And if you get this permanently, you don't need any accuracy on your gear at all in order to be hit capped. So do we have this permanently? Well, 10% chance to blind nearby enemies when you use an elemental skill. The first time you read that, you might think, oh, that sounds pretty good. 10% chance on hit is, you know, basically all the time. However, it's when you use an elemental skill, if you read the phrasing very closely. And since a lot of our elemental skills are triggered, they actually don't count for this. So the things that trigger this in our arsenal are actually quite limited. So there are a couple of things. Basically, the main one that triggers this is Vortex, and the other one, in order to help out the Vortex, since we don't cast Vortex super often, that's why I switched to a self-cast Molten Shell. Because Molten Shell has a fire tag on it, which makes it count as an elemental skill, which makes it potentially trigger this. That's one of the reasons I switched to self-cast Molten Shell. Another one is that it's sort of an edge case, but it's kind of interesting. If you'd popped Vault Molten Shell and you had Molten Shell on cast when damage taken, if your Vault Molten Shell's up and the cast when damage taken triggers regular Molten Shell, the regular Molten Shell actually overrides the Vault Molten Shell, which is not really what you want, and that is something that actually did come up a few times when playing. So it sort of doubles up. I've been meaning to try self-cast Molten Shell anyway for a while now, and it does let us level up our Molten Shell gem. So you can see that mine's now level 20. Could obviously be 21 if I bothered getting one of those gems, but that gives us a bit of extra armor, which is always nice. But yes, so with these two triggering this ability, and since we have two of them, it's 20% chance to blind nearby enemies when you use an elemental skill. Now, the way this passive functions is a bit different than what you might think. So it's not just a singular blind that happens. The thing that triggers here is actually a 4-second aura around you that covers the nearby area around your character as you move around. So it updates as you move, and it's just an aura on you that lasts for 4 seconds, blinding everything nearby. So it's actually very, very strong. And since it lasts 4 seconds, it means you only need to trigger this once every 4 seconds in order to have 100% uptime. Now, if you run the numbers on this, we cast, the cooldown of Vortex is 0.92 seconds, right? So we cast it, a tiny bit above 4 times a second. So with one of these, that'd be 40% uptime. With two of them, theoretically, that's 80% uptime. And since, we have a bit more, we cast it a bit more often than 4 times a second, it's actually, it's slightly above 80. And then with Molten Shell, it goes even a bit above that. So it's like, I would say with Molten Shell, it's like a 90-ish% uptime on it, which, in practice, I've found to be good enough to where I can justify dropping the accuracy roll for my helmet. It's obviously a judgment call. It's just me. I found this to be perfectly doable and perfectly fine in the content that I run, but not everyone might think that way. So if you don't feel that's good enough, you can always just run an accuracy roll on like your ring or your glove if you somehow manage that, and just run the regular cold clusters. But this has multiple things going for it. Obviously, the enemies get 20% less accuracy, which is very nice as well. A bit of extra defense. Gives you more evasion, basically, as well. So, yeah, and these clusters are actually a bit cheaper as well compared to the regular cold clusters. However, look, I don't want to be conspiratorial or anything like that, but since I got these, they've actually gone up quite a bit in price. So they're not as cheap as they used to be. They used to be just like a couple of X, but now they've gone up. But yeah, maybe it's just a unfortunate coincidence, but they are still cheaper than the big boy cold clusters, so something to consider. And I think the blind is really nice for a really minor, like 10% combined elemental damage is not a lot of DPS you're losing out on. So what does the 10% increased mana reservation efficiency of skills let us do? Well, it actually lets us do a few things. So the big thing it could let us do is we could replace Aspect of the Spider with Skitterbots now, since we have extra reservation. That does work. I tried that out. The problem with that is it needs another gem slot, which I don't have right now. So in theory, I could replace this rating for a similar one, but have it be onset, and that would fix it. But I have to run the numbers on that to see if it actually is worth it, because while Skitterbots is better than Aspect of the Spider, just number-wise, and also since it doesn't have a ramp-up time like Aspect of the Spider does, it's sort of doubly good, but damage-wise, I'm not sure if it is entirely worth it to replace this with an unset, especially considering the variance that introduces. But I'd have to run the numbers of that. I think ideally what we get is we would get a Prism Guardian that has +2 to level socket AoE gems, and then also has like grants Determination as corrupt. That will give us a free gem slot, and that will let us do Skitterbots. So that could be interesting to look into. It's not that Aspect of the Spider is good, but Skitterbots is just better to have, so I would obviously prefer that. But for now, since I don't have a gem slot for that, another thing it lets us do is it lets us change this reservation mastery from the 15% increased mana reservation, which is what I had before, into the 15% increased aura effect. So quite a strong note with all the auras we have. I think currently this gives me like 4% DPS, I think 6k armor, 4k evasion, and like 200 ES. plus some other stuff. So it's very strong and very nice, and yeah, that's quite good. But yeah, that's the major thing I've been doing with the build. Otherwise, it's pretty much the same as the last video, I believe. And I've been having some good times with it. It still just melts through, still acronyms as nothing. Yeah, I think that's it for the build updates. Let's now jump over to show you how I crafted these gloves and how you can do the same. Okay, so we are now in Craft of Exile, which is a website that simulates the POE crafting experience, and you can sort of use it to test things out. Let's maybe see if I can zoom in a bit to show you better. There you go. All right, so let's show what we're doing here. So basically, what we need to do with this craft is you need a base with both the Incursion mod, which is the increased damage against shield enemies, and the Warlord Culling Strike mod. And you need those two, and then you can guarantee everything else after that. So the base is interesting here. So obviously the best base that you can use is the fingerless silk gloves. However, getting a pair of these with those two mods on it, them in particular, is incredibly expensive right now. I believe one of those, last time I checked a couple of days ago, went from anywhere between 80 and 100x. And it's been pretty consistently at around that price. So that's a lot of money. But it's not a huge deal what base you use. Like this 16% spell damage is not massive. You can easily do this with some other base and be perfectly fine. So just look at your budget and look at the other bases and see what you can get. I saw that other bases with those two mods were like 10x or something like that, or even less than that probably. So if you're at a budget, just use a cheaper base. But I'm gonna use the gloves here just for the sake of it, because we are just trying stuff out. Alright, so let's put the mods we need on. So those are both suffixes. We go to Incursion. That's the one you want. And you also want the Warlord Culling. Okay, so let's also just add some random prefixes, because this is probably what the item's going to look like when you get it. So let's pretend that so we have 3 prefixes and these two suffixes. Now, important that you have an open suffix here. That's the one thing. So basically, the base item needs to have these 2 suffixes and an open suffix, or crafted suffix. Either one of those is fine, because you're gonna need to use that. So okay, now let's get started with this. So it's in steps, this process. So first of all, you want to craft on just any random suffix. So I guess whatever's cheaper. You can just craft on. Oh, that's not crafted on. Whoops. Let's craft on. Avoid to be stun immune. There you go. Stun avoidance. Okay. So you craft that on, and then you want to go and because you want to free up a prefix. That's the first quest here. So you want an open prefix so that you can craft on suffixes that cannot be changed. In order to do that, you go harvest and you go reforge keep suffixes. And then you just do that. Usually you only need to do that once in order to get an open prefix, but potentially you could maybe do that once or twice. So you can see that the reason why we crafted on the random suffix is that because otherwise it could randomly fill up. You could fill this slot when you reforge keep suffixes with something you don't want. So that's why we filled the craft slot up. Okay, so the next step is to fill our suffixes. So I'm going to choose to add attack speed as a last suffix because we can guarantee attack speed. Now, attack speed is not actually the best suffix you can get. The best one would probably be the crit elemental damage from Ashling. However, there's no real guaranteed way of getting that. You'd only pretty much, you'd have to go suffix cannot be changed, scour it, and then go a 1 in 3 on the Ashling. And that's very expensive because if you fail, it's just bricked. So you could do that if you have a lot of currency to spare, but I'm going to go with just the really reliable method. So the reliable method starts with suffix cannot be changed, which if we can click on it properly, there you go. So you craft that on. And then you want to go harvest, and you want to go reforge, and you're going to reforge speed. So reforge speed guarantees this last suffix to be attack speed. So you just do that, and you can see that we actually got lucky and got tier 1 attack speed. So this is the biggest sort of, because this roll here is the only roll in this process you can actually change. So whatever tier you get here is what you're going to have to settle with, unfortunately. Because there's no real reliable way, except for just YOLO nulling, I guess, to get rid of this attack speed. So if you get unlucky, like I did when I was doing this, and you get a tier 5 attack speed, you're just going to have to suck it up, unfortunately. But yes, so now we have our 3 suffixes good. Now, the next step is to go back and you craft all suffixes cannot be changed. So basically, there's a lot of suffixes cannot be changed crafts in this process. So it's not a super cheap process, this. I would say on average, it's probably like 20x or something. Then there's a lot of variance depending on how unlucky you get. But seeing as, it's a higher end pair of gloves, I think it's a decent, enough price point to where it's reasonably attainable. So our next step is to add the first prefix. So the first prefix we want to add is spell damage. And that is we can do that guaranteed. So you want to go another reforged caster with stuff that's going to be changed on, so we don't touch these, and this guarantees a spell damage roll. Now importantly, you want to make sure that the only roll you have when you do reforged caster, the only prefix it rolls is spell damage. If you get more than that, you might have to redo the process, unless you get 2 really good ones. You never want it to be full. You never want 3 prefixes on this. First of all, that's pretty rare when you do reforged caster to begin with. But also, that's sort of, if you do get 3 prefixes, you have to just go back to reforge, key prefix, and you have to just redo the entire process. But basically, the ideal is to get just 1 prefix roll and to have it be the spell damage one. And obviously, the spell damage is guaranteed. You can see that we can do it multiple times, and most of the time, we actually only get the 1 prefix roll. So let's say this is the roll you got. Obviously, you can redo this as many times as you want until you get a good tier. Let's say we settle at tier 3, if we prefer that. So now what we're going to do, and this is another sort of big RNG point here, is you want to go another suffix cannot be changed, and then you want to go Ashling. So the mod we're looking for here is the +2 to socket AoE gems. I believe that is the best Ashling prefix for us, and that means that we want to basically hit this with our Ashling. So Ashling removes the random mod and puts on a veiled modifier. So it's a 50-50 whether it hits the spell damage or the prefix here. And we want it to hit, obviously, suffix cannot be changed. So if it doesn't hit this, and we can try it out here, so you can see that now if we Ashling this, we actually missed it. So what you do now is you'd go unveil and you just get whatever it is, and then you'd have to go back. So since we have this on, we don't need to craft again. You can go harvest, and you just have to do caster again. And you see we actually got a bad prefix here, so now we'd have to do another suffix cannot be changed, and you have to do caster again. And now we're good. So now we'd go suffix cannot be changed. We try our second Ashling here. We missed again. So let's just try this once more. We go harvest, reforged caster. And we got another bad prefix. Oof, this is turning expensive. Oh boy. Okay, there you go. Then you go, stuff's gonna be changed. Let's see if we can hit it a 3rd time. Yeah, you see, you can't get unlucky like this. This is already, this is like 10x in, right? This is pretty expensive, but for the sake of it, let's go. There you go, so now we hit it. So it's just a matter of how many times you miss the coin flip. Determines how expensive this is for you. So this can get very expensive, so if you're not ready to, throw away some exalts, don't do this, but... it is what it is. At least, when you do get lucky, it's all guaranteed, right? And you can reset it as many times as you like. So, now when we have the veiled prefix on here with the spell damage prefix, we want to block, we want to make sure that we hit the +2 AoE gems. Now, there's no way of totally guaranteeing it, but we can help our case quite a bit by crafting on Fizz Conversion. Any of these 3 mods blocks the other ones, so if you craft one of these on, it blocks all 3, and they're quite highly weighted. So if we craft one of these on, now when we unveil, it's very likely we hit this mod right here, +2 to level of socketed AoE gems. So you can see that if we try doing this multiple times, most of the time we'll actually missed it here. But you can see that, oh wow, we actually missed it multiple times. But you can see we hit it there, we hit it there, we hit it there. So basically, I actually missed a fair few of these, huh? Maybe it's not as likely, but I would say it's at least 50-50 you'll hit it, but I'd say it's more like you see we got it again. Like I found it to be like 60-70%. It's sort of what it feels like. I feel like it's definitely above 50% anyways, if you do it this way. So again, if you don't get it like this, you can always reset. Like if you want to waste more currency, or maybe not waste, let's say invest, you can just do suffix cannot be changed, and then you do reforged caster, and then you do Ashling again, and do the whole process over again. But let's say we hit it. So we hit it right like that. And then what you do is you can just craft on the final prefix, which would probably be damaged by the leeching, because you can get that very high. And in order to do that, we have to undo our craft. Where is it? Sorry. There you go. And then we put the final craft on. And this will be your final set of gloves. So again, there are a lot of points of failure in here, but you can redo it as many times as you like to get what you want. And I don't think any of the rolls, like none of the individual rolls are too badly, there's nothing crazy in here, right? Everything is either at 50 or higher percentage wise, but obviously there's a lot of rolls in a row that you have to hit, at a reasonable pace. So it can get rough, but I think it's, pretty reliable in most cases to get these sort of gloves. And these gloves I think are really good. So that was it for this video. That's how you make these gloves. Yeah, might be expensive, but also if you're decently lucky or average lucky, it shouldn't be too bad. All right, so that's the video. I'll look to make some more videos covering the build and other cool stuff in the future. And thanks for all the support I've been given so far. I've really enjoyed making these Path of Exile videos. So, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.